It's not what you did, son, that angers me so. It's who you did it to.
Hello guys, welcome back again. Okay, so today we'll be breaking down what happened last week. Okay, on the FX trial. Okay, so let's just get straight into it and waste no further time. Okay, so hence we're starting off from our weekly time frame. Okay, since we need to find a higher time frame key level to trade from or towards to. Okay, so we know that we had this fair value gap right over here. I know some got the sales towards this fair value gap, which we did last week over here. We traded towards this fair value gap right over here. Okay, and then traded from this key level. Okay, so let's just mark out our key levels right over here. So I think you can see the difference between these two, that on the Euro USD we traded into this fair value gap over here, failing to do so on the GBP USD. Okay, so this is a cracking correlation over here. Okay, now let's go to our daily time frame. So now daily time frame, we can see that we had a fair value gap over here which was not tagged. Okay, this fair value gap was not tagged, but since over here it was tagged on GBP USD before. Okay, this fair value gap was tagged before. Okay, so we can go ahead and delete these key levels because we already know that we are in a key level right over there. We know that we are in a key level. We are in a key level. So we want to take our focus on this last week over here of the month, which was last week. Okay, the last week of the month which we traded over here. Okay, so on our daily time frame we can see we had this fair value gap tagged already over here. Okay, we can see that we had a fair value gap tag right over there, and can you see we had a SMT. We had SMT. We had SMT, but this over here is not sequential SMT over here. This is just SMT. Okay, don't confuse the two. Sequential SMT happens between two consecutive quarters. Okay, between Q1 and Q2, Q2 and Q3, Q3 and Q4, and Q4 and Q1. Okay, that is sequential SMT. This over here is not sequential SMT. I hope you took some notes over there. So now daily time frame we had SMT over here. Okay, can go ahead and delete this because I want to take my focus on the monthly. So on the monthly, we know that we need to go on our 4-hour time frame. Okay. Um, yeah. So this was Q1 week 1, Q2 week 2, Q3 week 3, Q4 week 4 of the month. Okay. As you know that the month consists of 4 weeks, and then we have 4 quarters. Okay. Hope you understand that. Okay, so we want to mark off week our previous week, which was from this point over here. Let's mark our previous week, which is Q3. because sequential SMT take place between two consecutive quarters, okay? So now, as you know that we mark off our lowest body closure over there and our lowest body closure over here. Now, can you see what is happening currently? That we took or we closed below this previous body closures of Q3. Same thing over here on the Euro USD. We closed below over here, okay? But can you see the differences now? Is that this week over here, we took out this week right over there. And same thing over here with 2, we did not take this week right over here, okay? This is sequential SMT over here, okay? This is sequential SMT. But in order for us to know that our sequential SMT is high probable, is that we need to see body closure, okay? This body closure. But since it happened on both, now we need to look at the DXY. Yes, I think it was already marked over here, okay? So let me just add this vertical line over here. So can you see our highest body closure was over there on the DXY? So now can you see that we had a cracking correlation now? We failed to close above over here and we closed below over here on GBP USD and Euro USD. So this was a sequential SMT. This was sequential SMT over here. Okay? I hope I made myself clear on that one. Okay? It was sequential SMT right over there. So let's go back to Euro USD. Since we do not trade the DXY, this was sequential SMT between week 3 and week 4, which is Q3 and Q4. Okay, so since we have that in place, we want to go down and see what happened inside this week. Okay, this week. So now we use our 1 hour time frame, which is our time frame alignment. Okay, we can go ahead and delete this line over here, since we already know that we have a monthly sequential SMT. So I did explain this in my previous video where we took our trade on Wednesday over here, trading on towards our key level. Okay, I explained this trade last week. So what I'm going to explain to you right now, which is the one we took last week here on Euro USD, we took ourselves right over here towards our key level and we closed our partials over here, over here, and we took our final profits right over there. Okay, I explained this in my previous video, so I hope you so right now what I'm doing now is that I'm dividing this week into its quarters. Okay, into its quarters. Okay, before I do this, can I just remove my daily quarters? So we want to focus on this week. So this here was Monday, this gray part over here. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, this white part over here. Okay. So our low of the week was created on Thursday, which we had a high impact news on Thursday. Right? Here we had sequential SMT right over here. But we had it, having it as a intermarket sequential SMT because as you can see that on the DXY we closed above and we swept this highest wick over here. Okay, we had an intermarket sequential SMT right over here. We had an intermarket sequential SMT right over there. If I can just show you right over here. Yes, right over here. Can you see this over here was Wednesday and Thursday? On the Nasdaq, this Wednesday low over here was not taken out by Thursday. So we had intermarket sequential SMT right here between this low over here and this low over here. Here we took this low out and closed below this previous body closures, okay? So there we had intermarket sequential SMT right over there, okay? So now, since we had a intermarket sequential SMT which happened on Thursday, we want to catch our trade on Thursday. So we will be trading our daily cycle, which is our daily quarters of Thursday. If I can just add them, which is our daily quarters on Thursday. I can go ahead again and divide this day into its quarters, which is the Asia session, London session, New York, and New York lunch. Right over here we had no sequential SMT. As you can see that Asia session was taken out by both over here. Okay, Asia session was taken out by both over here. So we had no sequential SMT right over there. We can go ahead and check on the DXY. Same thing happened on DXY. We had no sequential SMT right over there. So same thing happened across all, okay, and the index futures also. We had no sequential SMT right over there. But now, since we had no sequential SMT right over there on our daily quarters, okay, we drop down to our 90-minute cycle. So we will be focusing on this London session right over here, okay? So let me just remove my monthly, my weekly, and focus on my 90-minute cycles. Our 90-minute cycle, our time frame alignment for our 90-minute cycle is the 5-minute time frame. We need to be on the 5-minute time frame to trade our 90-minute cycle. And I hope you can see this clearly now. I hope you can see it clearly that we had sequential SMT between Q1 of, okay, so let me start again. This is London session. London session is divided into 4 equal parts as well. Each session over here is divided into 4 equal parts. This is Asia session, London session, New York session, New York lunch. Each session is divided into 4 equal parts, okay? So this is Q1 of London session, Q2 of London session, okay? So I hope you took that down. So right over here, we had no body closure. and that was perfect. Okay, I'll be telling you when you need a body closure and when you don't need a body closure. Okay, here we had we had no need for a body closure below this previous, okay, low, or previous body closure right over here. We had no need for a body closure right over there. So here we have sequential SMT between our 90-minute cycle, plus we had a sequential SMT, a intermarket sequential SMT on our weekly cycle. I'll be telling you, not now, okay? Not now. I'll be telling you why, when you need to see a body closure and when you don't need to see a body closure. In this case, we had no reason to see a body closure. Why? Because we had a weekly intermarket sequential SMT. We had no sequential SMT on our daily time frame, okay? On our daily quarters, I mean. We had no sequential SMT on our daily quarters, but we had sequential SMT on the 90-minute cycle. So once you skip, okay, I think I'm making myself clear on this one. Weekly sequential SMT, no sequential SMT on our daily quarters. Then a 90-minute sequential SMT, you don't need to see a body closure. Okay? Now the differences is then when you have a weekly sequential SMT and then you have a daily sequential SMT and a 90-minute sequential SMT, you need to see a body closure. Okay? So I hope I made myself clear on that. This is the reason why we needed to see, we did not see a body closure below. Okay, because we had a weekly sequential SMT, no daily sequential SMT, and then our 90-minute sequential SMT right over here. Okay, and then we just took the trade right over here on the Euro USD, which is the one we took right over here below here. Once we exit this trade, we enter the new trade right over here, and then the market just shot up. And then the market just shot up. And yeah, guys, I will think I've been here for almost 20 minutes or so. So once you have a weekly, let me just write it down over here. Okay, this is the quarters, okay? Weekly quarter. Weekly quarter sequential SMT. Sequential SMT. Then you have a daily quarter sequential SMT, and then you have a 90-minute quarter sequential SMT. Here when you have a weekly sequential SMT, then a daily sequential SMT, then a 90-minute sequential SMT, you need to see a body closure over here. But when you have a weekly sequential SMT, no daily quarter sequential SMT, then a 90-minute sequential SMT, you don't need to see a body closure. Okay, this is what I was trying to explain in this case over here. Okay, so I hope you took down some notes on that one over there. And yeah, I'll be seeing you next week, guys. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll be seeing each other next week. Okay, take care.